قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حني قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. It's a Wednesday morning and this is Let's Talk, coming through to you live on ITV Networks. We do hope you're going to keep us company right up until 10 o'clock, and we have three amazing ladies in the studio to tell us amazing stories. We're going to be looking at stay-at-home dads. We're going to be also talking about the high cost of cancer medication, and we're going to be talking about women empowerment, or rather the toolkit for working women, and this comes in a beautiful book written by two amazing ladies. So that's what we're going to start off with, and it is called Own Your Space. The good news is that the author is in the studio with me, obviously, and we are giving away two of these books on the show. So if you call in with a comment or a question, or perhaps you have issues in your workspace and you want to know how to navigate around those issues, call in. We do have the expert here. She's written the book, so I'm sure that she can answer any question we throw at her as far as the working woman is concerned. So I'm looking forward to it. Please stay with us. Remember, lines are open, and let's welcome our first guest to the show. She is Laurie Milner. Morning, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely, lovely to have you here, and great to be talking about women and their issues in the workspace, or in the workplace for that matter, but it's also about how to own your space. When we talk about your book and we talk about women and the spaces that they work in, who exactly are these women we're talking about?
So when Nadia and I, my co-author, when we conceptualized the book, we set the toolkit for the working woman, but it can be at any level. It's not necessarily how do you get to the C-suite and how do you climb the corporate ladder, because not everybody wants that. We all have different circumstances, different experiences, and for us it's around how do you start becoming that best version of yourself. So it could be maybe someone who's studying, who's going to enter the working world, or who's been there for a few years and wants to elevate to the next level of management. It could be moms at home who want to see how they can start to communicate better or network better. So for us, there's no set title around working woman.
When I received the book and I went to the back cover and saw a picture of you, and then I saw a picture of Nadia Bolchik, I kind of wondered, but where have I seen and heard this name before? I know this person. Who on earth is she? Till you put me out of my misery.
And she was in the days when Mnet had continuity presenters.
Right.
Nadia was one of the first continuity presenters.
Wow. And do you want to give us a bit of background as to where she is now and how this collaboration became a reality?
Absolutely. So Nadia left South Africa in '97. They had an opportunity to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and she then, shortly after arriving, got a position on CNN as a presenter and editorial producer, which she still does. And a lot of what we talk about in the book is the power of networking, and I love our story because it really is about conversations, connections, and collaborations. And a family member of my husband's was in Atlanta at the time who knew the family, and mentioned that they have a relative in South Africa who runs programs around women empowerment. And in addition to CNN, she also does her own training for companies. And she said, oh, great, can you give her my DVD? And her mom, which is a small world, lives in Johannesburg, 2 roads down from where I stay. So she's in South Africa twice a year. And we met and we connected and we had a great respect for each other's talents and what we do. And we collaborated on training, on workshops together. And it was in the October of 2014 where we decided, what can we do together? How can we bring everything that we've learned and put it into one place? And so the book was born.
So you talk about this collaboration. She's at the other end of the world.
Yes.
You are here in South Africa. What was it difficult trying to connect via technology to get this book going?
I think it couldn't be difficult because that was our reality. We knew that she's in Atlanta, I'm in Joburg, and we used the tools at our disposal, and we used between a lot of Skype and a lot of email. We did manage to connect together for 3 days in the States, but we both disciplined, we were both committed to what had to be done, and so it was a passion project, and it was a year start to finish.
Wow.
So a lot of after-hour time, well, morning for her, night time for me.
Amazing. Okay, so who is Laurie Milner? Tell us about Laurie and what exactly is it that you do, because here we're sitting with this amazing book in front of us, but I'm sure you have another life.
I do have another life. So I started my business Beyond the Dress in 2011.
Beyond
the Dress.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with fashion. Beyond the Dress started, it was I think from a personal point of view to start saying, well, as women, we have this tendency to want to do it all, and we want to do it all perfectly. And it was around how do we start to bridge that gap between work and personal life. And when I started the business, it was actually running events, getting different experts and bringing women together in forums to connect and network and talk about different challenges and issues that face us. And that evolved into corporate training, which I've been doing for the last few years, and I'm blessed that I get to do what I love every day.
Marvelous. So is there a second book in the pipeline?
So with Nadia and myself, not at this stage. There is a book floating around in my head that I want to explore, largely around working women and motherhood. And I'm finding, whether it's through a lot of people that I'm chatting to, that there seems to be, I think it's a certain point of motherhood where you start to feel this tug between work and between being with your kids and putting the value on motherhood that it should have, and how do you start to reconcile the two. And I'm finding
that
in a lot
resonates with me, because I promise you, I know exactly what you're saying. When my kids were little, it's this, fulfilling yourself, but feeling guilty at the same time. What about the children?
What about them? And
Yes.
I've got toddlers. They're 2 and
Yes,
4.
exactly. So yes, I can truly identify with that. Now, the book Own Your Space. We know that the working world is vicious. Even if you are working with sisters, so to speak, everyone's trying to make a name and a space for themselves in the working world. And it is a very, very vicious world. Do you give tips on how you try and work around those issues? And apart from working with other women, we know what it's like with working with men in the workplace. I mean, they may be men, they may think differently and behave differently to the way women do, but they also are they're also very territorial.
Sure.
So you find that you're up against men and women. How do you own your space without becoming vicious?
So that's a great question, and that's what the whole premise of the book is about. It's a toolkit. So the intention is to read the book start to finish, but then we give you practical tools in there to say, right, if I'm in a conflict situation, what should I do? I've got to grow my network. I've got to create mentors and sponsors, which are men and women. How do I do that? We talk about owning your headspace. So what happens when the self-doubt and the negative thinking comes in, or the lack of confidence? So it's exactly that. It's a toolkit. And it's about, you mentioned it's unique challenges. And I think it is a generalization. Not all women feel like this, but generally we find it more difficult to say no. We find it more difficult to negotiate, to ask for things. And those are the sorts of things we include in the book as well, because we generally do find it more difficult. So it's tools. Okay, well, how do I do this? Because what sparked Nadia and I to write this is we found there's a lot saying, this is what you should do, but there wasn't much telling you how. And that's where we wanted to fill in the gaps. And we took it a step further, and apart from our insights we've learned from our trainings, we wanted to tell a South African story. And so we included over 35 of South Africa's most successful, dynamic women, and we shared their insights and their stories. And so when we see that a Reedy Clubby or a Dawn Nathan Jones or Jay Srinadu, these are women that have achieved great things. Okay, they also have self-doubt. That makes me feel better. What did they do about it? they also face challenges. And the interesting thing is, across the board, all of these women we interviewed, they said gender didn't hamper their success. They didn't feel they couldn't do it because they were a woman. There were unique challenges, as you mentioned, sometimes in a more male-dominated environment. They had to speak a bit louder or work harder to get their point made.
Yes.
But they didn't let gender hold them back.
This absolutely would work perfectly in the home setting as well, because the one thing you said just now was how to say no. Now, you may be a stay-at-home mom, you may be doing things from home, it doesn't minimize your position at all. But when you're having to say no to a request from a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a relative, a loved one, we as women, I feel this way all the time. I beat up on myself thereafter because I feel I've let somebody down.
Absolutely.
And I also feel that they're now going to not love me as much anymore. They're judging me. I'm not good enough. I'm not their favorite person any longer. I've toppled off the top of the list. How do we deal with that, not only in the workplace, but specifically in the home?
So you've hit the nail on the head, exactly that. We don't want to say no because we're scared of not being liked. We don't want to let anybody down. But if we don't maintain our own boundaries and look out for ourselves, we'll burn out. And generally, the mother is the core of the home. And if we're not there, we have to be there. We have to be strong for things to work. And so the advice that we give is to say, separate the decision from the relationship. Because often when we're asked to do something, we confuse the request from the relationship, from the person. And we think, well, if I'm saying no to what they're asking me, I'm saying no to them. And often we've got to split it. We've got to make the decision and then find the compassion and find the courage to communicate it.
And it's the how. I want to get to the how. You know why, Laurie? Because I find that I don't stop apologizing. For goodness sake, I've said, no, I can't because, but then for the next half an hour, for the next 10, 20 days, or the next month, I don't stop apologizing.
So I'll give you the how. So we call it in the book the yes sandwich. And the yes sandwich has 3 steps. So the first step is where you acknowledge the person's intent. So for example, if you were asked to attend perhaps a networking or a cocktail event after hours, which we know is generally the time with family in the evenings. So the first step is to acknowledge the intent, because if someone's inviting you somewhere, it's because they value you. They want you to be there. There's a reason they're asking you. Secondly is where you politely decline. So you could say, well, unfortunately, I've got a prior commitment, or I've got too much on my plate to take on at this stage. And 3 is where you offer a solution. So perhaps it's, please think of me for the next event. I'd love to be there. Or if they'd said, can you assist me with something, or can you help on a project? It's just about saying, well, can we have coffee and discuss it? Can we brainstorm it? Can we schedule it for next week? Can I put you in touch with someone? Because you want to, with the yes sandwich, it's about saying no in a way that they don't feel deflated, that they don't feel it's a personal attack, and you letting them down gently. And it's always in the how.
And it's both parties here that's feeling bad about the situation. So let's explore it more right after the ad break.
Perfect.
I'm talking to Laurie Milner. She has co-authored a book called Own Your Space, and this is what it looks like. We do have 2 books on giveaway this morning, so if you call in and share a comment with us, we're more than happy to let you have this book. And remember, this is not targeted only at the working girls. It works equally well for those stay-at-home moms. It's going to truly help you empower yourself and to really be in control. So get those fingers dialing. You can walk away with one of these books. Let's take an ad break. I'm talking to the author of the book called Own Your Space. She's co-written this book with Nadia Bilchik, and it's a book targeted at women, but I think the guys too would benefit if they read the book. It's about how women own their space, how they navigate themselves, not only in the workplace, but in the home space as well. Now, we were talking off air, Laurie, and I asked you about women who are unable to say no and put everything and everyone else ahead of their own needs. What is it that they're doing? And because they put themselves last or not at all on the list, what are they doing to themselves? Are they giving other people permission to trample over themselves and take advantage?
I think as you said, as women, we tend to want to put everybody first, and we do. So we put family first, and we put other commitments first, and we'll end up sitting at the bottom of our own to-do lists. And the advice I always give in terms of how to own your time, and we speak about it in the book, is using your calendar to schedule everything. And that's got to be family time, and it's got to be work time and other commitments. And often what happens is we fill it up with everything else. And so, for example, we've got a doctor's appointment that we've been waiting months for. And then we get a phone call saying, can you come and do something on this day? And we think, okay, fine, I'll move it again. Instead of treating our own appointments as if we were meeting the president or the CEO or someone that we deem really, really important. And we've got to put ourselves in our calendar and respect our own time, because if we stop doing that, that's, in my opinion, when we start to feel that we get out of balance. Because I don't believe there is balance. I don't believe everything's ever going to be in perfect equilibrium. But if we don't start taking even 15 minutes a day for ourselves, me time, connect with yourself, read a book, do something just for you, whether it's to meditate or go to the gym or walk with a friend or do that tea with your mom you've always been, you've been meaning to do. Put that time in the diary for yourself. Take your own time back, because then you're happier to keep doing the role. But when we're so busy looking after everyone else and we start to neglect ourselves, that's when health issues happen, that's when anxiety happens, all sorts of things.
Talk to us about some of the women that have shared insights with you and which is contained in the book. For you, what would that be, or the ones that have really jumped out at you?
So for me, what really stands out is the fact that no matter who you are, no matter what you've achieved, self-doubt is part of every person's journey. We all at some point have a lack of confidence and we doubt ourselves. And it's what to do about it. And for me, a powerful tool that we talk about, it's called a positive emotional memory database. And really what that is, it's about acknowledging all your past successes. We are a culmination of everything we've done. And imagine in your mind, you take all the validating moments of your life. So the things that you've done that you think, wow, I'm really proud of that. And it could be something you've done in the family, it could be something you've done at work, whatever it means to you, that you think about it and you get a smile and there's that sense of pride, because it's about acknowledging the stuff you've done, because often we go, oh, it's not me, it was because of this person or it was because of my team. And you've got to have that, imagine it's a DVD you put together, and before maybe an anxious conversation or an interview or something that you find a little bit daunting, just to take a moment and play the reel in your mind and remind yourself what you've done, because success is around, courage comes first. So it's the courage to take that next step, because it's saying, well, it's accessing the memory. Well, I've done that before. Okay, so I can do this. And it's incremental nudges. That's how we start to get to where we want to be. It's little nudges each time to get a little bit more courageous. And so we've got to keep remembering what we've done.
Women are most vulnerable and feel at their least best and unlovable when they come out of a broken relationship. A marriage or whatever have you. Do you have any tips to give them on how to start picking the pieces up, building their self-confidence and forging ahead as the beautiful people that they are?
I would say everything starts with your headspace, and it starts with the thoughts we tell ourselves. And often, as you said, if you've come out of something quite traumatic, we have a natural negative tendency or a blame tendency, or we'd feel it's our fault, or whatever the circumstance is. And I think it's taking control of the thoughts you think, because what we tell ourselves impacts how we communicate ourselves to the rest of the world.
It's difficult to do that.
And it is difficult, but even if it is difficult, but it's first an awareness. It's an awareness to say, okay, is that a negative thought? And we say, stop, challenge, choose. So stop yourself. When it's, oh, I'm not good enough, or whatever the thought is, stop it. Challenge it. And often you've got to say, well, is this based in reality, or is this my irrational thinking? And often it isn't based in reality. It's something we're telling ourselves. And then choose a better thought to replace it. And I find something really powerful that I do every day. And if I skip a day, I want to do it every day, but at least a few times a week, is journaling, and often a gratitude journal. And when we're in a tough space, it's about taking a look around and writing down the things that you are grateful for. There has to be other things in your life that you've got to say, okay, well, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for, and it's not material things, it's the people in your life. It could be a beautiful winter's day, but the sun is still shining. So it's acknowledging the little things as well as the big things. And when you start to see, actually, this is what I've got in my life, and I'm going to get through that.
And the same rule applies whether you're at home or in the workspace.
Absolutely. This is for women. It doesn't matter what they're
All
doing.
right, let's hold that thought. We've got a call online, and then we'll
Okay.
continue. Zahra, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program.
Alaikum salam. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you enjoying the show? Do you have a comment or a question for our guest?
You know what? I actually walked now, and I forgot about the program because I was busy. So I found this I could see myself being in there. You know what? I actually want to find is for me, that's the one that should never say no. Because 2 years ago, I went to my GP and, you know, take a page, put no doctor on there and stick it onto your mirror. And go into the room and just look at it and then come back and say no.
Okay.
I love
That
that.
help.
That's wonderful.
That's absolutely classic. I'm going to start doing that. Thank you indeed. And of course, you're going to receive your book in the post sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweet thing.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Salam alaikum.
Kum salam. That was classic,
I
wasn't
love
it?
that. So you can learn from everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely love that. Coming back to the issue around women, so, you know, you're in this very, very bad headspace of yours because you've got this, you've come through a broken relationship. You feel unloved, and you're taking all of this negativity into the workplace. It's that much more difficult, obviously, because you feel I'm not worthy, people are judging me, my relationship is broken up. People probably think that there's something wrong with me.
So what we actually train around that, interesting, is that we always say, so say if I'm in a bad space and I'm coming into the office with you and you're picking up a sort of a negativity around me, often what we do is we take it back to ourselves, and you may think, oh, have I done something wrong?
Exactly.
And it's about always
When you
we
pick up a
say,
negative vibe, you always wonder, is it me?
is it me? And you've got to, we always say, seek first to understand and assume positive intent. So always assume, and we've got to do that. Maybe someone had a fight with their spouse in the morning, or they had a bad driver on the way to work, or we do sometimes tend to bring these into the office.
And Laurie, we as women are very intuitive. We pick
Yes.
up on all of these things, right? How do you broach the subject with the person that you're interacting with? Because I often, the moment I walk into a room or with colleagues or whatever, and if there's a vibe, I pick up on it immediately and always wonder, oh goodness me, did I say or do something wrong? Because you pick up on it.
Yes, you do.
How do you break that, the discomfort, or, this air of discomfort without probably upsetting the apple cart even further?
I think for me, a conversation, we always say conversations are the currency of change. And it's about, it can be as simple as going up to the person and saying, I'm seeing that you're not yourself today. Is everything okay? I'm here if you want to have a chat. And you'll see they could either be quite relieved, or they could say, no, I'm fine, and then they want to keep to themselves. But I think for me...
And that's a cue to you that it's not about you.
And then it's opening the door to saying, well, I've seen you're not yourself. If you work with this person all the time, and as you said, you can pick up on it because you generally know a person's temperament. And so I think as simple as a conversation to open the door and say, you know what, if you want to chat, I'm here. And it's up to them. So you're not putting them on the spot. And you're making it a safe space if that person wants to come and talk about something.
All right, we have about 2 minutes to wrap up time.
Wow. Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. What would you like to say to our viewers, and very especially the sisters out there?
I would like to say to get into the habit of, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is often it could be, we as women as well, we need to expand our networks. We need to grow the relationships that we've got. And often the thing we most want to do is the thing we fear the most. And we fear approaching someone or having a conversation or reaching out to someone because it's the fear of the unknown outcome. It's what if they don't like me? What if they don't like what I have to say? And it's just about deciding, well, what's the worst case that could happen? And often they'll say no, but rather take the plunge. And whether it's you know, I was talking to a group of matrics last week, and I said there are going to be people in your life that you may be thinking about a certain industry. Reaching out to someone who's there and saying, you know what, I want to think, I'm thinking of studying this. Can I meet you for coffee for 20 minutes to talk about it? And they all looked at me going, I can't do that. And I said, but people want to help you. And I think that's what we also need to remember, is that people are people, and on the whole, they do want to help and support you.
But the other reality, Laurie, is that we need to accept and understand that you're going to go through life not being accepted by everybody and not being liked by everybody. And you need to deal with that and move on.
But I would say always make sure you represent yourself in the best way that you can. So show up in a way that always amplifies your brand and who you are. So no, not everyone's going to like you. That is reality. But I think as long as you walk away saying, well, I represented myself in the best way that I could, and you walk away with that satisfaction. So you may not always get the result you want, and that's what owning your space is. It's about executing with comfortable confidence. So I think it's comfort in who you are, and you give yourself permission to be there. And the confidence, whether it's approaching someone, whether it's tackling someone something that's a bit daunting for you. And that's what we mean when we say own your space.
And that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
That was Laurie Milner that has come into the studio to share the book, or rather to talk about the book, Own Your Space. We do have another one on giveaway. So anytime during the course of the rest of the show today, you can call in and you can stand in line to walk away with the second book. Laurie, together with Nadia Bulchik, ex-Mnet presenter in them days gone, you know, I think that was in the 1970s. Back then, she was one of the first continuity presenters on Mnet. She has co-written the book. It's targeted at women, and it's about owning your space. Thank you for being with us on this part of the show. Don't go away. Still to come on the show, we're going to be talking about the high cost of cancer meds, and we're also going to be talking about stay-at-home dads. Now, the World Health Organization has predicted that 1 in every 4 people, or 1 in every 4 persons, will be presenting with cancer at some stage in their lives. So for me, that equates to possibly every household, or every second household will have a person that will be a cancer patient. And that is frightening, simply because we've been told that cancer meds are almost unaffordable. So what do people do? People who suffer from cancer, how is it that they're funding their meds? Does medical aid cover it all? I think not. So in studio this morning we have Louise Turner. She's with the Cancer Alliance, and she's going to tell us what exactly is playing out on the South African medical front as far as cancer meds are concerned. But I seem to think that this is not only a problem in South Africa, I think it's a worldwide problem. Louise, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having us on the show this morning.
Lovely to have you here, and I am really sorry that we should be having a discussion about sick people desperately needing medication to heal themselves, but find that the medication is totally unaffordable. So you are with the Cancer Alliance, and I know that you're also with the Breast Care Foundation. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, first of all, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2004. Completely out of context, never thought it would happen to me. I was 34 years old, never got taught anything about breast self-examinations. And at that time, my world fell apart, obviously. But I was very fortunate that I could access treatment. I had all my treatment at Joburg Gen, which is a public facility, because my medical aid excluded me for a pre-existing condition. Went through my treatment, did all my surgeries. I'm here to tell the story today. And then I became involved with the Breast Health Foundation, and it's about helping patients so that they didn't experience what I experienced when I got diagnosed. I was completely alone. There was nobody to tell me what was going to happen, what is chemotherapy, where you're going to go from next. The emotional side effects that I went through, the depression, etc., there was no one to help me. And that's how I became involved with the Breast Health Foundation, because there are so many women out there that need help. And this
And
is our
people
way of doing it.
outside of their circle don't understand, or possibly even in your inner circle, don't understand what you're going through. So after a time, they become tired of you, possibly, you know, complaining, and you're complaining because you don't know what else to do, and they kind of switch off from you.
You know, our family members, our partners, our husbands, they, particularly the men, they don't always express their emotions and their feelings, and they feel they need to be strong for us. And we as the patient feel we need to be strong for the family, because being women, we, the matriarchs, we run the household. And you get this gap in the family where they don't necessarily understand what the patient is going through, and the patient doesn't understand what the family is going through, because she's fighting her own battles dealing with the disease. And that's where your community comes into play. That's where the other breast cancer patients become your biggest support structure. There's an old saying, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And if you've been through treatment, you understand the challenges the patients are facing. So when they speak to you, they look at you and they see you as a survivor. You've been through this process. You're supposed to know what you're talking about, because everybody's experience is different. And they can draw strength from seeing us as survivors and know that there is an end to this journey, there is an end to treatment, and there is life after cancer. Today's medications and treatments that are available are advancing at a rapid pace. There's lots of research and development into new drugs. There's breast conservation surgeries that are available to women. So 30 years ago you had a mastectomy and went home. Today you can have breast reconstruction that nobody would even know you've had breast cancer. So with advances in technology, there's advances in medication. The challenge we have from a medication point of view is that they're very expensive.
Now, you went to a state hospital that many years ago.
Yes.
How is it that it worked for you, knowing that the meds are, and I've also been told that certain meds are not available for state patients. Yes. So how did it work? How come here you're sitting in front of me, the picture of perfect health?
I was lucky I didn't have HER2 positive breast cancer. Quickest way of explaining breast cancer is we all drive vehicles, we all have cars, but each one of us drives something different. It has an engine, 4 wheels, a steering wheel, but you get different makes of vehicles. Just like with breast cancer, it is, when I say a personalized disease, each person's personality of their breast cancer is different to the next person. And you get different kinds. You get estrogen, progesterone positive, you hormone receptor positive, you get triple negative, and then you get HER2 positive. It's a protein in your body. And approximately 20% of breast cancer patients have HER2 positive breast cancer.
Is that the worst kind of a cancer to be, a breast cancer to be presented with?
There's no worst kind. Mm-hmm. They're all, for the patient,
equally bad.
They're equally bad. But you have better prognosis with certain cancers. Now, what happens if you're HER2 positive? There is a drug that has been developed specifically targeting the HER2 positive gene. And I'm very fortunate I wasn't HER2 positive, so I didn't need that drug. And when I got diagnosed, I didn't even know that there was a difference in the cancers.
And I should imagine that those are the drugs that are not available in the state hospitals.
That's correct.
So what do these state patients do if they present with the HER2
They go
cancer?
through standard chemotherapy, surgery and radiation if necessary, but they don't get that add-on drug for a year that they need after their chemo treatment.
What does that mean to the patient?
Okay, if you look at the international environment, the WHO has an essential medicines list. And on that list are various drugs for all diseases, not just cancer. They say that that drug is required for the best long-term results in your disease. The drug we're talking about in South Africa is called trastuzumab. It is not on the South African essential medicines list.
Ooh.
A course, which is a year course, 17 cycles, is approximately 520,000 Rand per patient.
Sure.
If you are a larger woman, because the drug goes according to body weight, if you weigh 50, you might use half a vial. If you weigh 150, you'll need 2 vials. So there's another disparity there about size. So it could cost more than the 520,000 Rand. When you're in state, that particular drug is not available to you because it's not on the essential medicines list in South Africa, and there are no generics or biosimilars available for that drug. So it's not accessible. You can get it if you have the money to pay for it. If you don't have the money to pay for it, it's not available to you.
It also means that people who are on medical aid, you can't kind of sit there thinking, oh, I'm okay if I should ever, God forbid, if I should ever present with this type of cancer, my medical aid's going to cover me. But that's not true, is it?
It covers you to a certain extent, depending on the scheme you're on, depending on how high a platform you have of your medical aid. Most of the medical aids have an annual oncology benefit. And a lot of people, especially those with HER2 positive, exceed that annual benefit. So they have co-payments. And your co-payments can be up to 20%. So if you look at 500,000 Rand for Herceptin, you're looking at 100,000 Rand co-payment.
Sure.
And you're having treatment every 3 weeks. So you can look at up to 10,000 Rand a month co-payment to be able to access that drug.
And if you don't have the money, you obviously don't qualify. You just don't get the drugs, do you?
If you're in a position where you can find 10,000 Rand a month, you find the 10,000.
And the short answer then is if you don't have the money, you don't get the drug.
You don't get
What's
the
going to
drug.
happen to that patient?
Their long-term survival is in question. They might have a recurrence, they might have other challenges in the future, but it is a essential medicines drug.
It's something they're going to live with.
For your long-term survival.
Okay, let's take an ad break. I'm talking to Louise Turner. She is here to talk to us about the high cost of cancer meds. She herself was diagnosed with breast cancer, but she then became a state patient. She went to the Joburg Gen at the time. Thankfully, she is a survivor and in complete remission. We do hope it remains that way. When we get back after the break, we're going to talk about alternatives, if there are any, and what do you do if you find yourself in a situation like that? What's happening on the South African scene? What are medical aids doing about it? Is government involved? Should they be involved? And where does the Competitions Commission come in? Stay with us. Louise Turner is a breast cancer survivor. She's in studio today to talk to us about the astronomical costs of cancer meds. And if you are a state patient, then I'm afraid you don't have much chance if you need the specialized cancer treatment, if you are diagnosed with the HER2 cancer. Let's understand then what's government's role and when, how the Competition Commission has gotten involved and if they are able to make a difference in the lives of cancer patients. Louise, back to you. Is it only the HER2 cancer patients that are being faced with this problem, or other cancer patients, whatever other cancer you may present with? Do they also have challenges, or are we talking specifically HER2?
If you look at South Africa and you look at the access to treatment, the oncology centres, the major cancer centres are all based in the major cities. So if you live in the smaller cities or towns and the outlying provinces, you have a challenge to access treatment. And what we did in 2011, various cancer NGOs got together and we formed the Cancer Alliance so that we could speak as one voice for the patients. Instead of having 20 organizations each having a statement, we got together to form a one voice strong community to fight for the rights of cancer patients in South Africa. There are certain criteria within government for cancer treatment. There is no national cancer control policy in place at the moment, but there is a committee working on that. There is a cervical policy which covers for cervical cancer, there's no breast health policy. So there's no standard guidelines throughout the country on what should happen from a screening point of view for lumps in your breast and right through to treatment. You can access great treatment in the country in various centres. In Johannesburg, we're very fortunate with oncology. We have Charlotte Makeke Hospital. They've got a great unit there, but not all the drugs are available that are on the essential medicine list. Through the Cancer Alliance, we've been working with government, and there are a lot of rules and regulations in place regarding drugs. They have to be approved in South Africa by the MCC, the Medicine Control Council. There are patents on drugs, so you can't bring generics in on that drug until their patent expires.
And that's going to take years and years before that happens. I've also been told that the specific drug that we're talking about for the HER2 cancer is available at a fraction of the cost in India. Is that not then perhaps the route we in South Africa should go, is to try and import the meds to South Africa and just get more and more patients the treatment?
It's a lot more complicated than just importing a medication. Currently, trastuzumab has a patent in South Africa till 2020, and then there are extended patents on that drug till 2033, which legally means, according to the law, no drug can be brought into South Africa as a generic, because then you're affecting their patent rights.
So if you want the treatment, you'd have to go to India, for example.
You'd have to go to India, and that's probably just as expensive if you look at lifestyle changes. So what we've been fighting for in South Africa is to fix the patent law. It's a campaign that started late 2009, 2010. It is the Treatment Action Campaign, Section 27, Doctors Without Borders, and the Cancer Alliance has joined them, so that we can ask the Department of Trade and Industry to relook at the patent laws in South Africa, so that large pharmaceutical companies don't have 20, 30-year patents on a drug, and nothing else can be brought in from a generic or biosimilar point of view for the rest of the market. Now, with trastuzumab, the company that manufactures it has a clone drug available. That clone drug...
Clone being a generic?
No, a clone is a replica. Mm-hmm. Okay. A generic isn't necessarily always exactly the same as the originator drug. But
the clone is closest to the original.
Closest to it. It's normally made by the original pharmaceutical company, and it comes at a reduced price. They can provide that clone drug because they are within their patent law rights. That drug has been offered to government at a reduced cost of about 211,000 Rand per cycle. And now government sits with a challenge. Where do they find the money in their budgets to provide that drug to the patients? They are working on it at the moment through the Fix the Patent Law campaign, through the Cancer Alliance, the Tobeka campaign for access to medicines and access to Herceptin. So hopefully in the future, near future, I'm saying 6 to 12 months, hopefully trastuzumab will be available to patients in state hospitals. But then it becomes a budget issue. Does the Gauteng Department of Health have the budget to provide that drug? Does the Western Cape Department of Health have the budget to provide that drug? So we're hoping in the near future that this will be made available to patients. But again, it's an access, it's a cost factor involved.
Now, currently the Competitions Commission is busy drafting papers to go to court. What's that all about? If they are successful, what does that mean for meds or the cost of cancer meds?
The Competitions Commission has launched an application to 3 pharmaceutical companies regarding price fixing of drugs.
All drugs or specific drugs?
Specific drugs, predominantly cancer medications. Roche in South Africa has the sole patent for trastuzumab, and the Competitions Commission is looking into the patents involved and the cost of those drugs. if you look at one of the other companies that's been included in that Competition Commission inquiry, that particular company has just been fined millions of euros in Europe for price fixing of drugs.
Cancer drugs or in general?
Cancer drugs in particular. And it goes for all drugs.
So as you and I sit and speak here about the high cost of cancer meds in South Africa, this is not a situation unique to us here in South Africa. It's happening all around the world with these large international pharmaceutical companies.
They accredited to research and development. They spent years and years researching and development, and they want to recoup their costs with the high prices. I was at a conference recently, and there are approximately 80 new cancer drugs in the world.
80
new drugs that have come out recently. And in that conference, it was made known that there are only 3 countries in the world where all 80 of those drugs are accessible to patients: United States, the UK, and Germany. And the rest of us are the developing world, like South Africa and most of Africa. We are not going to have access to those drugs because it's too expensive. It's just not affordable in our economic climate to even bring those drugs into the country. The pharmaceutical companies look at it and go, it's not viable to bring it in because there's such a small percentage of people that can afford those drugs.
And sadly, they in the business, I mean, as far as large international pharmaceuticals are concerned, all they're interested in is the bottom line at the cost of your health, at the cost of our health. Where do we stand with the Competitions Commission now, right now, as we speak?
They are busy following their processes, and we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. But from a civil society point of view, the NGOs, the Cancer Alliance, we will keep on with the fight to get affordable, accessible treatment for all South Africans.
They're going to court in 2 weeks' time. If the outcome is favourable as far as the Cancer Alliance is concerned, what does that then mean to cancer patients throughout the country?
It means they should be getting the same care in private as well as state. In South Africa, 85% of our population have to access public health care, 15% have medical aids, and we would like to see the same equitable treatment for all cancer patients, irrespective of your demographic, where you live, and your income.
Let's look at medical aids. Let's assume you do belong to a relatively good medical aid scheme and you find yourself in a situation where you're having to do a co-payment, but you don't have the money. Can you negotiate with your medical aids?
First thing I always advise any patient, and whether it's for your child at home who's sick or a cancer patient, is before you go ahead with any treatment, surgery, procedures, always get a quote from the doctors and the hospitals involved. Submit it to your medical aid so that you know beforehand if there are going to be add-on costs and co-payments you need to pay. First thing. Secondly, the medical aids have a formulary that they follow. If it's on the essential medicines list, they have to provide it to the patient. But they also have annual limits. So, for example, oncology benefit, you might have on the higher plans about 480,000 Rand.
Per annum?
Per annum, per 12-year cycle, not per annum. So if you get diagnosed in June, it goes through till next year, June, your annual cycle. And certain drugs are more expensive. So you might reach that limit and then have a co-payment. You need to do special motivations to your medical aid, get your doctors involved, and see if they can assist you with those add-on payments. It's not always possible, but if you go to the medical aids with a good case, with your doctors behind you and the proven results from having certain treatments, most of them will assist and comply in certain ways.
And that's all we have time for. Let's just hope and pray that there's going to be good news as far as the Competitions Commission is concerned. And of course, we will be watching the story very closely. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And that then is the story as far as the high cost of cancer meds is concerned. We certainly will be following the story pretty closely. We do hope you're going to do the same. Still to come in the program, we're going to be looking at stay-at-home dads. And remember, we still have one more book on giveaway, so call in and share your thoughts with us. And I think this is now the fun part of the day. We're going to be talking about stay-at-home dads and just exactly how important a role they play in the lives of their children, and of course supporting the working wife. To talk to us about this lovely phenomena, I say lovely because I know of a family for whom this has worked over the past 30 years, and they have the most amazing children, very grounded, and this works so beautifully for them. But we're going to talk about obviously stay-at-home dads, but let's see how this has all started with Stephanie Dawson-Kossa. She's in studio with us. Good morning, welcome to the show.
Good morning, thank you. Good
nice to have you here, and we were talking off air about this amazing life that you, you're an international person. I mean, you're a person of, what did you say? What was the terminology?
I'm a nursery nurse from my original training, and now practicing as a family relationship coach.
Right, but you've kind of lived all over the world.
I have indeed, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Tell us about why the interest in stay-at-home dads. Have you written a paper around this issue?
So I haven't written a paper. It came up as a topic on a radio conversation that I'm a regular participant of. And interestingly, that I know a number of families where the couple have chosen to turn the traditional roles on their heads, and with varying degrees of success and happiness, have made it work. And so it was one of the topics that we picked up on the radio a couple of weeks ago.
Now, I'm wondering, how does society accept the stay-at-home dad? I referred to a case, someone pretty close to me, a relative, who has this situation working extremely well in their family. I've also indicated that this dad has raised 3 very, very grounded, successful children, and this works perfectly well for them. But I'm kind of wondering, how does society view stay-at-home dads?
That's a very powerful question that you're asking. I think the reality is that within our different cultures, within South Africa, but across the world, there are so-called traditional roles, and predominantly that is the patriarchal society. Father goes out to, well, in the old days it was to hunt, mum would stay at home to gather and nurture the children. Nowadays it's typically dad goes out to earn the finances, and mum would have historically, up until actually around the mid-1900s, mum would have been at home. But over the 70s and the 80s, things started to change, and it was partly due to the financial stresses of each family. And so as it became more acceptable for women to come into the workplace, and particularly to climb the so-called professional or corporate ladder, men have been able to, and also invited, to share the load in the home. So just as mum would be sharing the workload for earning the family income, now there was an invitation and sometimes pressure for dad to start getting involved in the softer side of homemaking. And so it's been a sort of osmosis kind of impact, and where the stats show that where dad has been rendered unable to work, that's a very different statistic for
We're talking
a physical disability or
illness.
retrenchment or illness. That stands apart from the stay-at-home dad who has chosen, or the family system has chosen, for dad to stay at home. And so what we're finding in the 2000s now is that parents are looking together as a couple, who is the greater breadwinner? Who has the greater potential to build that solid career path and income stream for the family? And as women have been liberated in the workplace, it's a different kind of liberation that enables a dad to stay at home. And as that trend has been growing, and unfortunately most of the stats are in first world countries, but those are very multicultural, and so they're able to look across different cultures within those countries to see where people are breaking the traditional roles. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the type of conversation that husband and wife would have to reach this decision. I'm also thinking and questioning, thoughts of emasculation of the man and society's view of this family. Not that that matters.
Yeah.
It really, what matters is what's going to work for this family. But unfortunately, those discussions will be had outside of the home as well by other people.
Yes,
other people making those comments.
So the nuclear family, you're absolutely right, Julie, that the nuclear family need to make that decision for themselves. So as the couple engage in that conversation, the wife, even while she was pregnant, she would have been thinking, how does this impact my career? Perhaps a father is not happy in his work, and so there is definitely a very practical discussion around finances. There's definitely a more emotive conversation around what makes mum tick, what makes dad tick. And they also are looking at how would they plan the child care for their infant. And so it's definitely a conscious choice between the couple. Making the comment around society, the immediate family, the extended family around them, some of them are very supportive, and some of them have a lot to say that is critical and makes it really difficult. So the concept of what the couple are deciding, it really makes them autonomous, and they have to be strong in their own conscious choices.
As a family counsellor, do you find that with a situation like this, because it's difficult, as open-minded as we'd like to be, and as I've alluded to the family that I know of where it's worked exceptionally well, and I also understand that up to 60,000 families in South Africa have opted to go this route for whatever reason, and I'm sure it's working well for them. But does there come a time or a stage where the man feels that he needs help coping with how he explains himself to his circle of friends, his buddies, his peers, etc.? Would he need to go for counselling? Because it's something big.
Yeah.
It's such a shift from the normal as we know it.
So he's definitely swimming upstream against the major, the cultural flow by making this choice to be a stay-at-home dad. So it wouldn't be a have to go into counselling or coaching. It would be a choice if he's questioning or re-looking at his choice.
Or not feeling good about himself.
Exactly.
Not so much for his family unit, and we are under that type of pressure, whether we like it or not. We know we're being judged.
Yeah. Society does judge us in both ways.
And that's the weight we have to carry.
It is, indeed. And so certainly, dads as mums, stay-at-home mums, do at times come into coaching or counselling to have an in-depth look at where am I in my life. And so it's more the big life questions, which if we are stay-at-home parents, whichever gender we are, I mean, how we mark success in the workplace is very easily recognized in our increased salary and our KPIs and all of those. At home, we're looking at a happy, content child. How do you measure that? And the child has an off day, and and we get tired, and they don't settle, and we don't get that break in the middle of the day when they would have ordinarily had a nap. So all of the stresses that a stay-at-home mum would have, a stay-at-home dad has. And so having that conversation with peers, with other parents, and learning how to language for themselves what they're proud of and why they find it satisfying to be a stay-at-home dad is key.
Let's take an ad break. I'm talking to Stephanie Dawson-Akosa. She is a family counsellor. We're talking about the new trend, and I do think that we're going to be seeing much, much more families going this route, and for dads opting to stay at home whilst mom goes out and follows her career or her profession. If you have any thoughts on the matter, we'd love to hear from you on the open line, but right now we're going to take an ad break. And we're into the final segment of the show this morning. Fascinating discussion with Stephanie Dawson-Akosa talking about stay-at-home dads. And I think, I know that this trend is going to take off in a very, very big way. So let's get more comfortable with the idea and not be surprised when friends and relatives tell us that they've decided to go this route as far as their family structure is concerned. Now, Stephanie, I'm wondering about, I think, as much as we don't like being defined by our professions, our careers, we don't want to. We want to be accepted for who we are as a human being or as a person, but it just happens almost automatically. What happens to the career person, the man who now decides to be a stay-at-home dad? How's he going to define his success, who he is, what makes him a man, so to speak, what defines him as a successful man?
Well, I think it's interesting that when we talk to people who are nearing the end of their lives, we get an interesting insight into what they truly value. And instead of counting the coppers in their accounts, their bank accounts, they're actually saying, I wish I'd spent more time with my children, with my spouse, with my extended family, etc. And so
And sadly, that realization comes way too late in our lives.
Yes. So what's interesting in today's younger parents grouping is that they are being able to, and technology also helps us, is that parents are now choosing how much of their time they need to spend in the workplace. The less they spend in the workplace and are actually able to be home-centered, allows them to start being more flexible in their thinking of how do I define my role as a husband, a father, and as a career person. And so as we find this trend shifting of from stay-at-home mums to stay-at-home dads, we are becoming more flexible as lifestyles become more flexible. So just as mums have been able to define, over the last few decades, begun to define themselves as wife, mother, and with their career, dads are being able to define themselves even more now as an active father, as well as whatever career path they've had. The choice to become the stay-at-home dad is often about where they can excel as a whole person, not necessarily defined by a workplace.
I'm wondering about women who reach a point in their lives where they start suffering from empty nest syndrome. The kids have grown up and have left home or gone to uni or whatever the case may be. What's going to happen with the man, with the stay-at-home dad, when kids leave the home? Is he going to suffer from empty nest syndrome?
Well, I think just as mums of this generation have been, as the children have entered preschool and school, and they've got pockets of time for themselves, they've started either doing further study or designing some kind of business that they can begin to grow while they're still home-based. Often the dads are also doing the same, so that while they're very hands-on with the very young child, that once they've got those gaps in the day, they're being able to pursue a hobby or begin to
so they
build
also
a
have
business.
me time,
Yes.
like us girls.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely.
When we look at the stay-at-home dads and the kids that they're raising, are they raising more analytically minded children? Are the children being raised differently? Are we seeing a different product of this child that's being raised by dad as opposed to mom?
Well, it's very interesting. The stats that are coming and the information, there's been a lot of research in the UK and the States and Australia. And what is emerging from that research is an awareness that the way that dads interact with their young children, they will often be doing the rough and tumble play that instead of just 5 minutes at the end of the day when dad's been out at work, that's happening energetically throughout the day with between dad and the children. And so with that, there's a whole lot of physical activity that is creating the child being able to go the extra mile, to push themselves a little further in terms of something that they might have shied away from. So whether it's a physical activity or an intellectual activity of a game, an educational game, for example, that seems to, so dads seem to encourage children to stretch their thinking and their playing. Also, when they're faced with a challenge, something that they don't understand, dads will generally seem to ask questions that will enable the child to stretch their thinking, whereas mums would typically often just give the answer. Okay. So it's interesting that the gender-specific approach to dealing with an issue with a young child is slightly different. And of course, I'm talking in broad gender strokes here. But so what's happening is that the child that's raised or spending much more time with dad is in fact being stretched in a way that a child with being cared for by mum full-time might not be.
What about the children? How do they adapt to these changing roles? Do they like it? Is it good for them? And how do they answer to their peers back at nursery school or school for that matter?
Well, it's interesting that it seems for the children that being picked up by a parent is what is key. Whether it's mum or whether it's dad isn't the key issue for that. For them, it's that mum or dad is coming. What matters for them is the security of knowing who's coming. It's the consistency, and that would be the norm for any child, that in the consistency of routine, they can be at peace and calm within themselves. In terms of it being an issue to their peers in the school situation, it doesn't seem to matter at all. In terms of the shift that happens for mum accepting that dad is doing a lot of the hands-on caring, of course they were part of that initial decision. So they're very happy that there is if it's not her, that it's dad. And so it's knowing that a loving parent is doing these routine things on a daily basis. What's also interesting is that the statistics show that the mum is still able to create a very close bond with her children when she gets home from work, and that becomes the priority. When she gets home, knowing that dad has been there during the day, they have mum and child time.
So mum's going to make quality time for the little one, about half an hour at the end of the day.
Whatever they've got, but they're going to really focus on that time. And therefore the bond is closer. But the shift that happens for the dad, when dad was at work, the research shows that dad was tired, often impatient, and would only want to have time with the child if the child was calm. If the child is tired and ratty, they don't want, they kind of said, I'm too tired for this.
I've had a full day as it is.
Yeah. But because he is at home in this role, he's building that bond, so he has a much closer ongoing bond with the child throughout life.
What are the type of challenges that we see with this type of family setup, with the changing roles between mom and dad, for all three the parties, mom, dad, and the little one?
So with the mum, she has fulfillment in her career path. And that is, as with dads who are fulfilling their career path, if they're the one that's going out to work, there's a sense of personal satisfaction. I'm achieving, I'm affirmed in the workplace. And there's personal growth that's going on in that space. So for mum, she's achieving that. The peace of mind that she has that dad, who she knows and trusts as her husband, is with the children, gives her peace of mind to be able to be fully focused at work. For dad, again, he was part of the initial choice. If it's a disaster, it can be reviewed. But if it's going well, then he is giving fully of himself in that nurturing role, but allowed to be himself. It's not that he's replacing mum, he's being fully dad. And so he brings the dad talents and flavors to the parenting role during the day. And so there's a different kind of satisfaction that's going on for him. And as with stay-at-home mums, he will find pockets of time during the day and during the week where he can follow his own interests, whether that be out in a class or a social grouping, or whether it be at home reading and researching. He can take that time and manage that into his weekly schedule. The benefit for the child is that he or she has got easy access to at least one parent throughout the day for as long as they're at home and after school.
And I guess as far as the child is concerned, it's unconditional love and attention from whether it's mom or whether it's dad, but they're getting what they need and what they want.
Absolutely.
In closing then, I'm wondering about women are natural nurturers. We want to nurture, love, protect, and do all of those lovely things with our children. And it doesn't matter how high-flying you may be in the workplace. Do you think that women kind of get a sense that they've been cheated out of something, even though that's a decision they've made, and think, I've missed out on this huge part in my child's life?
Well, I guess there's always going to be moments when it feels like that.
And there is that trade-off that you've decided to...
Yeah, so it's the give and take. But just as the point is that they made the choice together, they can always review that choice, but at the heart of it, I think the essence is when we look at what is in the best interests of the child, we have enabled at least one parent to have ongoing connected time with the child throughout each day.
And I guess a well-adjusted, happy child equates into a happy family, and that's all we have time for.
Thank you.
Stephanie, it's been wonderful talking to you. We do hope we can do this sometime soon again.
Great, thank you.
That was Stephanie Dawson-Costa talking to us about the stay-at-home dad. This is a trend that's going to be, I think, really all around the country and around the world. It's something that is a growing trend, and we need to get used to it. That's all we have time for. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning. Till Saturday morning at the same time, as always, Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Alli.
Ya hala, 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا